Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Shrinking Season 1. You're faced with a choice. You're going to let your grief drown you, or are you going to face it and come out the other side? Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Shrinking Season 1. Special thanks, as always, to our friends at Apple for letting us watch this series early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Now, joining me for today's session, we'll say, we have my favorite patient, Justin Lawrence. How are you doing this fine evening?
Favorite patient. Thank you. Well, you're my favorite therapist,
listen,
let me tell you.
We've been doing these sessions for such a long time now. I think I can call you my favorite. Or it's probably not a good idea for a therapist to tell their patient that they're their favorite. I don't know. Feels like something they do in this show, though.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely have. They definitely play favorites in the show. They have some favorites.
I'm excited to talk to you about this show and about a group of people whose job it is to talk to people. But before we get to the review, let me tell you what Shrinking is all about. So Shrinking follows a grieving therapist played by Jason Segel, who starts to break the rules and tells his clients exactly what he thinks. Ignoring his training and ethics, he finds himself making huge, tumultuous changes to people's lives, including his own. As I said, the show stars Jason Segel, also stars Harrison Ford, Jessica Williams, Krista Miller, Luke Tenney, Michael Urie, and Lukita Maxwell, and is produced by Segel and Bill Lawrence, as well as Brett Goldstein, both of them from the team behind Ted Lasso. The show premieres Friday, January 27th. With these reviews, if you haven't heard one of our reviews before, normally we like to just go in with what worked, what didn't work. But I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think there's really much of anything that didn't work for me about this show. And Justin, I'm sure you feel very similar. So let's get into talking about what's great about Shrink. And Justin, if you don't mind, I'm going to be perfectly upfront with you and ask if it's okay. Do I have your permission to start off this section of the review?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So if I had to use one word to describe this show, I think that word would be honest. The way this show is written is so incredibly honest. How these characters interact and respond with each other is fantastic, and it makes it so much more believable, given that, you know, a lot of them are therapists, or they've grown up around therapists, or just being around therapists their entire life. And it does have very similar vibes to a show we literally just mentioned that keeps coming up in conversation because of the people that are working on the show. And that's Ted Lasso. And if you're a fan of Ted Lasso,
you're going to love this.
You're going to love this show. It feels, Justin, this is the TLCU is what I'm calling it, okay? The Ted Lasso cinematic universe. If Coach Beard or Roy Kent or any of the characters from that show were to show up in this show, I wouldn't be fazed by it. It would feel so natural. The pacing of the episodes, the music by Ted Lasso composer Tom Howe, and again, that honest dialogue really blend together to create such an enjoyable experience across every single episode.
Yeah, I could not agree more. You use the word honest. It is very relatable, and I think that it's relatable for the idea of how we cope with grief. I'll say it spiritually feels similar to that of Ted Lasso, because it's using comedy to talk about real life issues and how they affect us on a daily basis and how we can overcome that. The trio of therapists that we have with Jason Segel, Jessica Williams, and of course Harrison Ford, the irony of the fact that, you know, they are trained therapists that have patients to help them cope with whatever they're going through. But when they have stuff going on in their lives, they have each other to lean on to help cope with their own problems in life. And I think it's such a comedic irony that therapists have therapist friends that are therapists to them, and they don't necessarily take their therapist friends' therapist advice.
Their advice.
Because they know that they know the tricks of the trade, if you will. So I think again, it's so tongue in cheek in how it handles the topic of trauma, and it uses comedy in a way to, I think, again, grounded in a sense of relatability. It's not dark and dour. It's very authentic and honest in its approach of talking about how we cope and having a support system and having people to lean on. And again, I think that this show, from episode to episode, as you said, it makes you feel so good. Like, there's some really funny episodes, but there's also some really emotional episodes that'll hit you and have you thinking.
I mean, the first moments with Gabby, Paul, and Jimmy together in their break room.
Oh my God.
I was just like, I'm in love. I'm in love with these people. And usually these types of shows, it can take at least a season to feel like you know the characters and how they'll act and how they'll react with each other. And so, like, I'm thinking to myself, why do I feel such a strong connection to the entire cast after literally, the first 2 episodes? And I really do think that does come down to the writing. The writing is strong. It's confident. The show knows what it wants to be, and the cast just effortlessly flows through these lines that are also very hilarious at times. You talked about, like, getting emotional. I was getting tears of every flavor coming out my eyes with just how much I was laughing and literally on the floor laughing at some of these moments. But the show, it never gets nonsensical. Right. It's always believable, even when the unbelievable things happen. And this is going to sound strange, Justin, but, I think even after those first 2 episodes, or after episode 3, the storytelling started to give me the same feeling you might get when you're just hanging out with your friends and they're telling you a hilarious, outrageous story about something that happened in their life, right? That you actually find interesting, and you're laughing as a group, and you almost feel, even though you've never heard this story, you almost feel like you can contribute because you have almost like a shared inside joke with that person. Does that make sense? Like, that's the feeling I get when I watch this cast interact and when I watch these episodes. It just felt like warmth and friendship and kinship, and I love it. I'm rewatching it even before we did this review. I'm watching every episode at least twice. It's so good.
Yeah, no, it's great. And let's talk about the cast. We've mentioned, the trio of therapists: Jason Segel, who plays Jimmy, Jessica Williams, who plays Gabby, and Harrison Ford, who plays Paul. All 3 of them, as we've just discussed, are so relatable to the characters that they play. They connect instantly. It's entirely believable. Jason Segel has really come into his acting. Like, this series really allows him to flex both the comedic and the emotional side. And I think he does such an amazing job being this sort of traumatically broken father who's trying to find his way and uses his patience as a way to navigate his own therapeutic resolve. You can really get to see these moments where he feels his emotions. And I really got to say, this is some of the best acting from Jason Segel. Jessica Williams, her character Gabby, is so down to earth and so real. So absolutely real. She is hilarious. She had me in stitches more times than anyone else.
I mean, I love her geeky love of Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
The fact that she knows Gandalf's horse is named Shadowfax. Like just these little things where you're just like you just sometimes you don't know what to expect out of her, and she's always sort of surprising you with the next thing that she's about to say. But at the same time, as surprising as it is, you're like, no, I totally see that at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other big thing about her character is that she has no filter, and she's very upfront and honest, very much like this show, like we were talking about. But she was definitely a standout, because when I think about the believability and relatability of these characters, she stands out in my mind.
Good.
And then you got Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford as Paul. I'm trying to think of like where I've actually laughed at Harrison Ford. Other than maybe moments like when he's Han Solo or Indy.
Or in Indy, yeah.
Right? And I know he's done a lot of movies, don't get me wrong, but we're geeks. That's our
what
go-to.
We're going to reference. Yeah.
So to see Han Solo or Indiana Jones in this series, to play such a relatable mentor to both Gabby and Jimmy, it's so well done, because that is who he is in real life, I bet, to the whole cast
I'm sure.
that's acting in this series. He was hilarious. I think you may be surprised if you're thinking of Harrison Ford as the Han Solo and stuff. You are definitely in for a surprise. I know one of the biggest reasons we wanted to check out the show is because it is from the same creators of Ted Lasso. But for me, on top of all of that, it was to see Harrison Ford in this role, and he does not disappoint.
Well, he can act like he can, and it sounds so silly to say that, but you're right, Justin. As geeks, we're not necessarily used to these moments, but he, despite him being so grumpy on the show, he does the grumpy Harrison Ford thing. At the same time, he's responsible, and his character and what happens with his character is probably some of the most heartwarming moments on the show that get you crying and get you laughing, but also just feeling so much. And I think the other character that I wanted to call out as well, like you mentioned, Jason Segel. I think his daughter, played by Lukita Maxwell, she's phenomenal.
Great. Yeah,
she is. It's cool because you're seeing both Jimmy as well as Alice. You're seeing them go through this loss, go through grief, but in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of shows sometimes they're not able to capture that, and this one does. And seeing their relationship is phenomenal. Their chemistry is phenomenal. Even with Jimmy and his patients. His patients are all of them are written well, to the point where I'm like, you could do a whole episode of just him interacting with one of his patients, but one of those patients being Luke Tenney, who takes on a bigger role than the other patients in the series, and his story is so well told. He's suffering from the PTSD of his past, but the way they write his journey, I love how they don't do it where it's his sole character. It doesn't define his character. He's suffering from it, but it's not. I think a lot of shows that do deal with war-related PTSD fail to give their characters more depth, more aspects about the character than just their PTSD. And I think this show nails that. It gives so much depth to the character of Sean, and it gives so much depth to, pretty much almost all of these characters. I would say except for, what's the husband's name? Derek?
Yeah, so
Derek, played by Ted McGinley, he's meant to sort of be a one-note joke of a character, but this is where I see opportunities for a season 2 to dive further into his experiences, right?
For sure, but I think the importance of Derek is in relation to his wife, who has a larger part in this story, Liz, played by Krista Miller, and I think her character deals with loss in another way. Given that her kids are no longer living at home, and that kind of has an effect on her relationship with her husband, Derek. So everyone is important, and everyone serves a purpose, and everybody's dealing with their own shit.
Yeah.
And you get to see how they're all there for each other. They're a support system, and their stories intertwine, and it's lovely because no one's there for the sake of just being there. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone is connected. And I think the cast that they have that are playing these characters just elevates how relatable and how honest the perspective is for this series.
Yeah, I would probably say 98% of the characters on this show are there for a purpose and not just to move the narrative forward, which is another big, trope when it comes to writing these shows that are, 8 episodes, 9 episodes, 10 episodes long. Sometimes you have just that one random person that maybe you don't really think about, but is there for a good portion of the episode that doesn't really mean anything. Every single moment with these characters, I want to know more about Brian. I want to see what happens with Brian's story and how our main characters interact with these additional characters, to the point where, again, even though we mentioned him earlier, but someone like Derek is a side character, I could easily see them making him a more important part to this story, right?
Yeah, for sure. And again, everything we've talked about is an extension of of the writing. We have this writing team from Ted Lasso, which is why, again, everything you just described about how characters are handled and why they're there, that is so exactly how you could talk about Ted Lasso and every single character. Everyone serves a purpose. So that sensibility in writing from Brett Goldstein, Bill Lawrence, and Jason Segel coming together to tell something, as I mentioned, feels spiritually similar to Ted Lasso. They have the formula of good storytelling. That's what makes this all successful.
And I will say, I think because we do keep bringing up that comparison, I know Ted Lasso was one of the shows that I introduced to my parents on Apple TV Plus, and they absolutely fell in love with it. And, I come from a little bit more of a traditional background where maybe, my family doesn't really swear that often. And so some of the things that are said or some of the subject matter in Ted Lasso was a little bit, dicier. But because of the quality of that show, it got through to them and they were able to look past that. And I kind of feel the same way with this show. And I will say, this show does get a little bit more, I'll just say it, honest with with how it talks about like sex and drug use and different other and elements of loss, but it does so in such a way that never feels like it's pandering to anyone, but it also never feels like it is sort of holding back. It just is. And I think the strength of these stories and the aspects and the themes to this show are so relatable that if you are on the fence about sort of sharing this show with someone who might not like the F word, fuck it, do it, because exactly. It is fantastic.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Last note here that I have,
sure.
You mentioned the music. Again, another extension that feels spiritually connected to Ted Lasso, and that is the score from Tom Howe. Just like in Ted Lasso, this music adds such a tonal layer that makes things feel appropriate and it never loses its charm. I listen to the Ted Lasso soundtrack regularly.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very much looking forward to hearing this soundtrack when it hits Apple Music.
Absolutely.
And they have an amazing theme song from lead singer from one of my favorite bands, Death Cab for Cutie. Theme song is sung by Ben Gibbard. And just hearing that as we get into the cold open and we get into the song, I was like, okay, I'm really going to like this show. And it 100% did not disappoint. Yeah, I know we're gushing about this series like no tomorrow.
Is there anything, I know I said that there wouldn't be, and there isn't for me. Just to double check. Is there anything that you can say negative about this show?
I don't have a bad thing to say about this show. I'm excited for people to watch it.
Let's get to our overall final thoughts and score for this first season of Shrinking, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 breakthroughs.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to just repeat a bunch of buzzwords that we've mentioned
just a bunch
here.
of the stuff we just said.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, again, like we were saying, this show is relatable. It's honest. It's an absolute surprise and delight. It's incredibly impactful in the way it uses comedy to talk about grief. The writing team from Ted Lasso and the executive producing team, Brett Goldstein, Bill Lawrence, and Jason Segel, and they have so much to be happy about because this show taps into a core human trait of loss and dealing with loss and talking about the relationships we have with one another. And that is so beautifully represented in the cast of characters that we had. We've talked extensively about them, but just like we've talked about our 3 main cast characters, the secondary characters, the side characters that are there, they add so much value to the entire show. At the end of the day, it just feels like you're watching people. Yeah, nothing bad to say. This is a solid 5 out of 5 breakthroughs for me, man. Like this is, I want more of it. I think Apple again delivers a quality series. 5 out of 5. I'm really hoping that this show gets a season 2 and we get to see more.
Please. It's a joy. That's the biggest thing. You walk away smiling. You walk away feeling heartbroken at times. But in sometimes the best way possible. I know that sounds crazy. It breaks down barriers. It's just, again, the honest dialogue of all of its characters. You're crying, you're laughing, hits you in the feels. And the way the show deals with loss in more ways than one, right? We think of loss, we think of grief, and sometimes we sort of put those words and those feelings into one finite definition. And this show shows that no. If it's losing connection with a friend, if it's you've lost a family member, if it's losing a romantic partner, whether it be because of death or maybe it's you just are no longer together, right?
Or as I was referencing with Liz, like losing the connection with her kids, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
they're not in her life anymore, right? So I totally agree. I think loss manifests itself differently for different characters throughout this story, and we get to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. And I think if you're even if you're feeling like you're lost and you don't know what to do after a traumatic experience, again, similar to something that the character of Sean goes through, like this show, it deals with all these themes while delivering an outstanding story with poignant and hilarious performances from its cast. This is worth every moment of your time and then some. Like if you're in the middle of pretty much any show currently in January, there's been some fantastic stuff that's come out in January already. This is worth your time. I've already been rewatching it, as I said. I'm so excited to talk in detail with my friends and family every single week as the show comes out. So I'm going to be giving Shrinking an easy 5 out of 5 breakthroughs. It is a breakthrough. It is absolutely
it is a breakthrough.
A breakthrough.
100%. It's feel-good television, man. It's feel-good television.
Listen, Apple, if you're listening, put that on when you tweet it out. Just it's a breakthrough. The Geekcentric podcast. So, anyways, let's. Justin, I wrote this. Let me. All right. Well, that's our time. That's what they say at the end of a therapy session. Just okay. And that is it for this review of Shrinking on Apple TV Plus. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this series or any of the shows or movies we cover, well, let me just straight up send you over to Justin to let you know how you can reach us.
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows and games. Our most recent Geek Back episode, we took a look back at 2022, talked about our favorite movies, TV shows. We talked about our biggest disappointments. I got a really good one in there that you have to check out. I don't get disappointed too often, but this one hurt me, so check it out. And we also talk about what we're looking forward to for this year. We also have a ton of interviews out now, like our most recent interview with Luke Tenney from this show, who plays Sean. Justin sat down with him to discuss this series, talk about how he can relate to his character of Sean, as well as what it's like to work alongside Han Solo or Harrison Ford. So definitely go check out that interview right here on this podcast feed. And we have some interviews on our YouTube channel. We interviewed the Bad Batch themselves, if you're a fan of Star Wars animation, as well as so we interviewed D. Bradley Baker, as well as the head writer of the show, Jennifer Corbett, and supervising director Brad Rao. You can catch that on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. Justin, it has been such an incredible year for TV already. And, I think it's only January. And between Shrinking, Star Wars, The Bad Batch, The Last of Us, I'm blown away with what we've gotten so far. And speaking of The Bad Batch and The Last of Us, you like that transition, Justin?
Nicely done.
We have two weekly watch clubs going up every single week, where we break down our thoughts and theories on both of these shows. So our Bad Batch watch club goes up on Wednesdays, and our Last of Us watch club is going to go up every single Sunday after the episode premiere. So you'll literally be able to watch the episode and then pretty much instantly be able to listen right afterwards to our thoughts. That's if Justin does his job correctly. But listen, we have some great stuff planned for 2023, including more interviews, more reviews, potentially some convention coverage across Europe, and so much more. So again, subscribe here, subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, keep up with all the things, click the bell, leave a comment, write a review. Justin, is there anything you want to say to the lovely folks listening right now?
No, there's nothing.
Perfect. That's very honest of you. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this lovely and honest review. And as we say, Love ya.
Peace.